There are two things that I wanted to highlight when we think about programming GUI. First of all is the importance of methods. As we program more, as we create more components, create more things, we'll run into a lot of code. If you can see right now, all I have are 4 components and 2 panels. It's barely organized. It's not pretty at all. But you can see that we already have a lot of code. And if none of this is functional. This is all just for creating and putting these buttons and labels and things onto a screen. So one thing we want to do is make sure that it's organized. What I like to do is have methods to kind of organize where my code is, what my code is doing. So for example, instead of having to create everything in my constructor, maybe I want to have a method called, populate frame. And what is populate frame? Well, I need to create that method. So public void populate frame. And all I really do is I take all this code, I can cut, and I can paste it here. And so what happens now is I compile this. There are no problems. And you can see that my frame looks exactly the same. Now, why does this work? Well, this leads into the second point, actually. But just reiterating this point that it will be helpful. So if you take a look at the graphs assignment that we had to do, if you look at graphing frame, okay, I did something similar where I created a side panel, a bottom panel, I had our text field and buttons and all that. We didn't end up using the side panel, that's okay. But you see that I have my method, build side panel, build bottom panel. Why did I separate it this way? Well, because in my bottom panel, I had a specific way I wanted to organize my panel. I wanted my label, and then have the text fields and all that stuff. And then adding all these values to the panel. And then for the side panel, I wanted to kind of test it separately because I was doing something with radio groups. And you can see that's all that code here. By having these codes as separate methods, what I could do if I was just simply working on one aspect, I could, for example, comment out these 2 lines, the build side panel part, and just say, okay, it's just building the bottom panel, and then I'm adding the bottom panel to the frame. And because of this, it's a lot more easy to read just by looking at the constructor. If I wanted to understand more of the nitty-gritty, then I would go into the method and see, okay, what's happening in build side panel? Well, actually, in build side panel, all of this code is happening. It's better for testing. It's better for organization. It's better for readability. Yeah. And so why am I able to copy and paste? From what we've learned so far, again, the variables that we create inside a set of brackets only exist within those set of brackets when we declare them, right? But we are working in something called objects. So access of variables, the variable scope, where we can use it, it still applies. It exists within the brackets it is created. So for frame that we've been doing through this demonstration, you notice that we've been creating the J button and J label and text field and all that stuff inside the brackets of class. We've been declaring them inside the brackets of class, but they're not declared inside the methods. And so we learn a lot more about this in grade 12. I'm not going to get into it, but we can think of a class kind of like a thing, and these are different parts of a thing. And so an example off the top of my head, you have a student, has a name, has an age, and all that stuff. And so a student is able to, have a birthday, and then their age is able to increase. So in this way, it's a different way of programming. Not different way of programming, slightly different approach to understanding how the values are stored. The main thing that you don't see right now is in all of this code, you haven't seen the word static anywhere. Again, the only time we've seen static is in our public static void main. All of this is inside basic frame. All these variables, they don't have the word static beside them. We delve more about what the meaning of static is in grade 12 a bit more. That being said, the reason why we can access the click button, click to button inside this method equally to in this method is because these variables are created within this set of brackets. Now, officially, technically, we should be saying this dot click button. For grade 11, I'm not too finicky about it, but this is something you should do. Again, this is proper style, and I will be enforcing that in grade 12.